Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw Carson Teva appear on The Mandalorian, I doubted him because he looked a little chubby, maybe a little bit too jolly, Korean Santa Claus kind of came up into my mind. Best friend to Korean Jesus.
Hey! Stop f***ing with Korean Jesus. He ain't got time for your problems.
When I saw that sag in the back of his flight suit, I couldn't help but think to myself, poopy pants. But of course now, especially in light of the most recent episode of Ahsoka, Captain Carson Teva has not only been steadily winning my respect, he's really one of the only few New Republic characters I can tolerate at this point. So how do we get here? Well, first of all, let's talk about Dave Filoni's role in grabbing Paul Sun-Hyung Lee to play Carson Teva. Apparently, Filoni's wife Anne was watching Kim's Convenience Store, a TV show which featured Paul as an immigrant bodega store owner in Toronto, with a kind heart and no-nonsense approach to adapting to the diverse modern Western world. As an East Asian with older relatives, I really appreciated how this show captured the petty racism that is rampant amongst our communities.
It's the Sea of Japan.
Japan pay atlas to say that.
So Japan paid every atlas in the entire world.
Hey, it's a Toyota, but still, no parking zone.
How many times do I have to tell you, Appa, Japanese people aren't the only ones driving Japanese cars?
Janet, 1910, Japan attacked Korea. Korea used to be spelled C-O-R-E-A. Then Japan tell England Korea spelled with a K, so that Korea come after Japan in the English dictionary.
But yeah, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is a gem of an actor. But I was surprised that Dave Filoni thought it'd be a good idea to place essentially an old Korean convenience store owner into the cockpit of a T-65B X-Wing, which is where we're at now. But you see, Dave Filoni didn't have a part ready for Paul. He actually created the role specifically for him, and this is really the genius of Dave Filoni. It's one of his greatest strengths. He's always trying to challenge people's prejudices and expectations. I mean, look at the most important character he created, Ahsoka. He made her a super arrogant and annoying teenager who a lot of fans initially hated, but throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels, we would see her go through so many hardships and overcome them that most of us would eventually begin to respect Ahsoka. And Carson Teva is kind of a perfect fit for the New Republic. I think Dave Filoni really understands how the New Republic works. Despite all of its flaws, it's really not the Empire. The Imperial military was obsessed with appearance. You had the big triangle Star Destroyers, long-legged walkers, the slick black uniforms, the leather boots, the goose-stepping and polished helmets. Captain Carson Teva, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He's a little overweight, he's a little chubby, goofy-looking in his orange flight suit, and he's pretty old. The actor who portrays Carson Teva is around 51 years old, which means that Carson probably was old enough to have fought in the Clone Wars, and he was middle-aged already by the time the Galactic Civil War started. And while Carson Teva might not have made it through the strict Imperial requirements and high physical standards for their TIE fighter recruits, and was probably seen as too old to be recruited into the ruthless training pipeline created to make robotic cannon fodder pilots. In the New Republic, however, especially in the Adelphi Rangers, Carson Teva's age and experience are invaluable. Actually, in some of the best air forces in the world, a lot of the fighter jockeys, like 30% or more, especially in the reserve forces, are usually in their mid-30s and early 40s. Actually, it's not unheard of to have pilots in their 50s and some even in their 60s. I mean, we're talking about a state-of-the-art multi-million-dollar platform here, guys. You're not gonna put an 18-year-old in there who can't even rent a car. And so age is not as much of a factor as one might think, especially if you consider that Star Wars fighters have inertial compensators, which significantly decreases G-force in the cockpit and strain on the body. Anyway, in Star Wars, the name Rangers has a close connection with the Jedi. The Rangers were paramilitary forces that assisted the Jedi Order and were made up of primarily non-force sensitives. They did everything from reconnaissance, logistics, sometimes they even supported the Jedi in direct combat. These individuals were pretty separate from the traditional Republic government structure, and they were always seen as more independent operators. It's not surprising that many factions of the Rangers fought valiantly to save the Jedi leaders during Order 66. But most of these groups would be hunted down by the Empire and destroyed. The Rangers always followed their own hearts, not just the chain of command. The Adelphi Rangers were just a new Republic starfighter squadron based out of the world of Adelphi. But I like to think that they carry on that independent spirit of the Rangers from the Republic era. The Adelphi Rangers are a small unit of pilots and fighters, and they patrol the entire Arcanus sector. This is a massive territory featuring the Arcanus system, the Tatooine system, and Geonosis, to name a few, and it was also intersected by both the Corellian Run and the Trillius trade route. During the Empire's reign, there would be an entire sector fleet in this area. We're talking about at least a half a dozen Star Destroyers here. And so you need to be extremely smart, very disciplined, and probably a little crazy to take on this task of controlling an entire sector with just a squadron of X-Wings. But Carson Teva was not afraid of adversity. He was an original rebel.
Says here you're from Alderaan. I served during Alderaan.
He didn't wait until the Battle of Endor to join when it was clear that the Empire had already lost. He joined when things were really bad. Back then, the rebellion was light on equipment, manpower, discipline. Back then, there was nothing really stopping a rebel pilot from getting up and just leaving the fight and returning home. Back then, there was a good chance that one of your wingmates was a murderer and the other was a revolutionary terrorist. You know, to this day, I still don't understand how this motley crew of fighters were kept together. Was it ideology? Was it their joint hatred of the Empire? Or maybe it was just individuals like Carson Teva, who always did far more than was expected of him. There was always something pure about that generation of rebels. Many of them didn't need a uniform or command telling them to do the right thing. That's just what they did naturally. Something that's clearly missing with the New Republic, with all these bureaucrats and individuals looking for a job and a paycheck. And it's not surprising that we would find a hero of the New Republic, Carson Teva, in the Outer Rim. It was the final frontier of the Empire, and it was the final frontier of the Old Republic, and now also the frontier of the New Republic. When the Empire was destroyed, what remained of it scattered all across the galaxy. A large group went into the unknown region. They would eventually be known as the First Order. Another group would hide itself in the Outer Rim. The Adelphi Rangers were most likely tasked with protecting the shipping lanes that ran from the core to the Outer Rim. And, you know, because this is at the end of the trade line, this might be why they have so few fighters and resources. But Carson Teva does far more than just protect the trade routes. He carries out an investigation to figure out what Imperial forces scattered in the area are doing. They aren't in Republic space, mind you, but one sector over in Navarro, a non-aligned world. Now, Carson wasn't a fool. While pursuing his own investigation on sightings of stormtroopers and hidden garrisons, he understood that the New Republic's presence in these regions were weak at best. And so he had to rely on the local population and develop a network of informants and confidants who could help with this investigation and protect him if needed. The captain sees a like-minded soul in Cara Dune, a Republic commando who used to crack stormtrooper helmets open between those thunder thighs of hers. That might have been a war crime, but Carson Teva doesn't care. He needs as much help as he can get. He's realistic and understands the true threat of the galaxy. He's not worried about smugglers or overly violent commandos. You know that line we showed you before where Carson Teva talks about serving in Alderaan? Well, he's using that to try to manipulate Cara Dune into joining his cause.
Did you lose anyone?
I lost everyone.
I'm sorry for your loss.
It's a real shame what happened to Gina Carano because there was supposed to be a show called Rangers of the New Republic, and I think it would have been awesome. Imagine an old Korean man and a muscular former MMA fighter punching their way through the Outer Rim, solving mysteries. That's the buddy cop formula we never even knew existed, and it's something that I think we all could have really used. Cara Dune's not the only person Carson Teva recruited. He was smart enough to also realize that the Mandalorian was an agent of good. He first became interested in the Razor Crest when it was flagged as a getaway vehicle in a prison break on a New Republic correctional transport. The pilot did have an arrest warrant out because of his participation in that mission. But upon studying the surveillance footage, Captain Teva realized that Din Djarin had attempted to save the life of the corrections officer on board, and he also managed to trap 3 of the other members of his crew in prison cells after they turned on him. Captain Teva realized that he had someone here who he can work with. This is something you might expect out of like a detective or an undercover cop, but it's not really something you would see from a military officer. But then again, Captain Teva is a very special guy. Carson Teva's aim isn't to arrest Din Djarin, but simply talk to him and try to understand what's going on a bit better. Carson Teva understands that Din Djarin's not the problem in this area of space. He actually might be the solution in some ways. And so he'll look past the fact that his ship's transponder is always broken or that he occasionally takes sketchy bounties, knowing that if things were to go down and innocent lives were at stake, it's better to have someone like Din Djarin flying around than locked up in some prison cell for some bureaucratic nonsense. That's justice, Carson Teva style, frontier style.
Am I under arrest?
Technically, you should be. But these are trying times.
And Captain Teva also tries to teach this philosophy to the younger ones coming up in the ranks. When Mando is pulled over once again, this time for a traffic violation and an assortment of illegal modifications, the rookie flying with Captain Teva is about to complicate the situation.
Yeah, sorry, officer, but my transmitter isn't hooked up yet. I'll head right back to Mos Eisley and get it sorted out.
Relinquish your flight controls for remote control access.
Hold on a second there, Lieutenant. I think we can let him off with a warning this time.
Carson Teva is not worried about traffic tickets. He wants to know why the Razor Crest was spotted on Navarro fighting the Imperial Remnant.
Did you used to fly a Razor Crest?
I think you have the wrong guy, officer.
That ship showed up on a transponder log back in Navarro in an incident involving Imperial remnants.
I'm just connecting some dots here.
You mind answering a few questions?
Captain Teva always has his eyes on the prize, and he's actually the one who began realizing that the New Republic had a lot of Imperial spies within its ranks. While the Corps continued denying the existence of the Imperial Remnant, Captain Teva kept his investigation going. When Moff Gideon simply disappears after getting arrested, it's Captain Teva who figures out what happened to him.
I'm sending you a transponder signal. Why don't you bounce it through the flight logs at Central Command?
It's a New Republic prison transport.
Check the departure times.
I'll be damned. Flight times match the ship transporting Moff Gideon.
I knew it. You never made it to trial.
It's also Carson Teva who suspected that Moff Gideon was using the Pirate King Gorian Shar to cover his attempt to retake the world of Navarro after his forces were defeated and kicked off. And here's the thing, Carson Teva has no real reason to help out Navarro. It's not in his sector, and in the past, when he's tried to talk to Magistrate Greef Karga, he basically stonewalled him.
So is there anything else you can remember before the base exploded?
No,
How long after the Razor Crest jumped out?
I never said anything about a Razor Crest.
Your transponder log.
Transponder log, come on, give me a break.
But now with Navarro under pirate occupation, Carson Teva springs into action because lives are at stake. It's no longer just about following the breadcrumbs of his investigation. But as we mentioned, the Empire's infiltrated every part of the New Republic command structure, and Carson Teva has to fight against this.
Have you ever heard of Navarro?
I have. Spent some time there, in fact. They have yet to sign the charter. They're not a member planet.
Uh-oh.
Into the bureaucrats, the true rulers of the Republic.
Imperial spies know exactly how to manipulate the system because, let's be honest, the New Republic bureaucratic system is very similar to the Empire's. It's basically the same thing. When he can't get help, Carson Teva is undeterred. Instead, he relies on his network of informants. Time is of an essence, especially with Greef Karga over here playing Moses in the desert.
We'll make camp here for a short while. Help will arrive soon. Very soon.
Who's coming to help? How can you be so
I have sent a message to the New Republic.
At this point, the New Republic is basically one elderly Korean man in an X-Wing. And that's just about enough to get things done. Carson Teva is kind of a genius and pretty reckless. He contacts the Children of the Watch, an extreme Mandalorian cult that I'm pretty sure most New Republic officers would not want to deal with because of their extreme nature. And he almost gets his head blown off when he shows up uninvited.
Greef Karga sent this holo message.
But once again, Carson Teva, like an old cop, can see through stereotypes. He understands individuals, he understands culture. And luckily, one of the Mandalorians in this group is Din Djarin, the pilot of that Razor Crest he's been following around for so long. Carson Teva also knows that these Mandalorians, despite being kind of scary, are honorable, and they also love to fight. He also understands that Greef Karga and Din Djarin are friends. And he'll use that cultural knowledge and his info about Din Djarin and Greef Karga, plus a little guilt to get exactly what he needs.
Look, it's not your fight. I just came to tell you your friend is in danger, and I thought you should know.
The captain puts the Children of the Watch exactly where they need to be. As a result, Navarro is safe, and the Children of the Watch get to fight, which they like, and they also get a nice home that's not surrounded by gigantic predatory animals. Captain Carson Teva is open-minded, he's experienced, and he's very skilled. He doesn't follow the law like it's some religion, it's just another tool he uses to try and preserve the peace. The captain understands that sometimes you have to throw away the rule book and just work with whatever you have, and at the end of the day, it's all about protecting innocent lives. But that's not to say Carson Teva isn't courageous or that he won't follow orders if instructed to do so. We see in the Ahsoka series that if there is one commander Carson will follow to hell and back, it's General Syndulla. When Harrison Dula requests a task force to stop Morgan Elsbeth's attempt to bring Thrawn back to the galaxy, Carson Teva is ready to step up and volunteer for this task force. Whether she has permission for this mission or not doesn't really matter.
Thanks for joining the party, Carson.
Wouldn't miss it, General. You know, you're risking an awful lot by doing this.
Harrison Dula is taking the majority of the risk here as a general and as the commanding officer. Carson Teva could just say that he was following orders, but that's not what he's going for here. He's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that his general's orders are fulfilled. He trusts Harrison Dula completely and doesn't question her, even when the New Republic sends a task force to bring everyone back. Carson Teva actually has to figure out a way to delay 3 New Republic cruisers from ruining their party.
I'll give you one last chance, Captain Teva. Explain the nature of this mission, or I will see to it that you are stripped of your rank for resisting a direct order from Fleet Command.
It's one thing to die as a hero in combat. It's a whole nother thing to get dishonorably discharged or court-martialed and basically lose your entire livelihood. I think that scares people like Carson Teva much more. But still, that doesn't matter. Carson Teva is a real one. And I don't really know what's going to happen to him or individuals like General Harrison Dula. They are true heroes of the rebellion and the only people left in the New Republic with any sort of sense in them. I hope the New Republic understands that what they were doing here was truly important for the safety of the galaxy. These are the individuals who are actually fighting on the front lines of this secret war against the Imperial Remnant. It's almost a shame we know how this battle will end one day. The Remnant will turn into the First Order and return, and the New Republic will turn into ash. But still, heroism is heroism. And, I would gladly serve under someone like Captain Carson Teva any day of the week.